Welcome back, everybody. This is Talks with Kenny, and here we'll be talking about why leftists seem to be more prone to misinformation. Here's my case for why I believe that the average lefty, at least under 30 years old, is more prone to misinformation than a conservative, for instance, right? Americans who mainly get their news on social media are less engaged and less knowledgeable, correct? Right? So I'm putting myself in this because I get most of my news from social media as well. But the only thing is I tend to research stuff on my own. I tend to read articles by myself and try to get the information directly from source. But if you're not politically engaged, more often than not, you just take the information at face value. And that's what I believe is happening here. About 1 in 5 U.S. adults say that they get their political news primarily through social media, right? That's about 25%, almost 20%, sorry, of social media, right? Age under 30, 48%, majority of this age group between 18 and 29 get majority of the information from social media. And then second is news, websites, or apps. And then TV, television, those are going out the window. And this is why social media is so important in the political sphere and why conservatives shouldn't be banned off social media, because our voice matters too. And we want to be part of the public discourse as well. And Twitter, I believe, I don't know who else bans, but banning us off the platforms and not having our voice spoken is doing a misservice to leftists, because they don't have their ideas challenged often, because college institutions, Hollywood, they all things, they never really are challenged politically. And I think this is a big reason why they always late on the ball when it comes to things like coronavirus, or when things happen in politics, or they're misinformed about, the next thing the Supreme Court justice is going to take is birth control, when they're not moving past that point. Those who get their political news from social media are most likely to be under 30 years old. And I kind of want to throw in the 50s, because this is also important. They're more spread out across, because they're like Gen X and Millennials are in this group too. And Millennials are also in the other group, but it's also Gen Z as well. And Gen Z is the one that I believe is the social media thing that really impacts them the most. So here is the political knowledge test, and how they tested it was they gave them like 9 questions, I believe, political questions. And based on how well they answered it, they put them in a bracket. And if you can see here, social media is 57% low political knowledge, right? And if you read the websites, it's the most political knowledge is those who read for themselves. They have high political knowledge. And this is a big reason why I believe Joe Biden won the popular vote, because a large proponent of the Democratic Party, right, they rely on the young vote, right? And young votes, right, if they get their information from social media, who did Joe Biden do an interview with? Cardi B. She has a big social media following, right? Is the ones that have high knowledge and they get their information from social media, I bet you the high knowledge and medium knowledge, majority of are conservative. Because on social media platforms, like I stated with Twitter, that have a left-wing bias, they'll ban anything on the right. Not everything on the right, but most, like Jordan Peterson, for instance. He projects conservative values. Conservatives really like his opinions. They really like to hear his opinions a lot. And because he challenged predominantly left-leaning ideas, he gets banned. He gets suspended. He gets shut off. And that creates an echo chamber regardless if they meant to do it or not. And this has been a pervasive problem with conservative values or conservative ideas, is that social media companies cater a lot, because they believe that, young people are very moderate, left-leaning, whatever. But I think it's psychosis. Like, you made them this way because you only give them information that confirms a left. This Pew Research article was made in 2020, so some of the information will be outdated. But looking from it from a 2022 perspective, you can see where I'm going with this, right? Social media news users most likely to have heard conspiracy theories that pandemic was intentionally planned, right? Now, this is where social media was correct, right? But that's because compared to the other access here, for instance, cable news TV like CNN, there's more left-wing TV institutions than conservative ones. So you're more likely to hear a left-wing view there. Print, I'm not so sure. Network TV, same thing. Local TV, I'm not sure. Radio, depends. News articles, right? You have your pick of the litter, so you have more variety there. That's why you say here there's a bigger component of a little. You have more variety there, and you're more exposed. You're more able to expose yourself to different ideas there. But in social media, because of misinformation policies they have, right? Like when they banned the Biden laptop story, social media did that, and you're more less informed about that stuff. And now looking for 2020, we know that hey, it's no longer conspiracy theory. It's actually something that's being entertained currently. That hey, this came from a lab. Who was this intentional, right? So here's on to the next article, and I'm just going to skim through this real quick. This is also by the Pew Research Bureau. Nearly half of Biden's voters were younger than 50, right? So here, nearly half of Biden's voters, 49%, were younger than 50. And as you can see in the demographics, 30 to 49, 18 to 29, right? These voting groups, I believe, are exposed with a left-wing bias on them, right? They always have a positive view on the left. Here's a partisan chart, and the partisan chart is a little bit more interesting. So most partisan view the other side as closed-minded. Republicans see Democrats as unpatriotic. So based on the comment section, you can comment. Are these true what the Democrats say about the right? Here it is. They're patriotic. I agree there. Yes, they agree. The second most is they're hardworking. Yes, because conservative ideals is hey, you work hard. Man don't work, man don't eat. Right. And then what's the next thing? Moral. They say hey, they're more they're moral, intelligent, and then they say we're more closed-minded than them. Right. But I think that's projection, honestly. So if you look at the conservative side, they say Democrats are more open-minded, but I kind of take it as yeah, they're more like, oh, they're more creative. Like, that's how I take it. And then the second most highest is moral. And then after that, intelligence is like at the bottom right here. But with the Democrats, I think how the Pew Research did this poll, I think they did this poll misservice because I believe that to test for open-mindedness, I think they should test for that. And one way I believe they could test for open-mindedness is how well can you accurately articulate the other side's opinions on certain issues. If you can't do that, to me, you're closed-minded. If you can do that, yes, you're open-minded. That you're able to entertain the other side's opinions and thoughts and and accurately depict where they're coming from without mischaracterizing their argument or their position. And here's the big part I'm trying to say. Republicans and Democrats say they can't agree on basic facts. That's the majority. Both sides agree on this. That's they can't. 73% can't agree on basic facts. And this is where the partisanship is coming, because I believe as Gen Z and millennials get older and older, and boomers and Gen X starts passing on, our politics is becoming more and more partisan. And I believe this is a big component. Why? Is because of bias reporting. Here's a Pew Research. So Pew Research was surrounding news coverage of Trump were more negative than for other presidents, right? But I'm using this as not to focus primarily on Trump, because end of the day, the president of the party he's the personification of the party, right? So in Clinton, you can see that Bush and Clinton had the same amount of negative press. Bush got more of a neutral, like they didn't really care. But Clinton had more of a positive approval rating, as you can see, because there was a study that came out that most journalists on the corporate media side are registered Democrats, right? And you can say unconscious bias or unconscious bias. I have an argument about them having a a bias towards conservatives, right? So as you can see with Obama had less negative, and he had a way more favorable coverage. And if you look at Trump, it was the opposite. It nearly flipped. So I'm saying with the current voters that for the past 4 years, we've been getting 62% of our news that took a negative dig at the Trump's presidency, right? I'm going to keep continuing on because I don't want to stay on one point. So this is talking about within parties, media diets make a difference in thoughts and perception about COVID-19. And remember, this is in March 18, 2020. And it goes greatly about the exaggerated risk with COVID-19, and only audience with a right-leaning audience, 63 greatly believe that COVID-19 was exaggerated, while slightly believing. But now from a 2022 perspective, we can see that who was right. The conservatives were right on this, right? But because of all the news and being labeled conspiracy theorists, if you were a lefty, you were being uninformed about this. And then with that kind of knowledge, when you're thinking, oh, COVID's a big issue, is whatever, I have to vote for Biden because statistically, young voters are less engaged and less knowledgeable on political issues. So they'll just go on, oh, Cardi B has Joe Biden. Oh, The Rock endorses Joe Biden. I'm going to go vote for Joe Biden. Return to a sense of normal. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. People fall for this stuff. And the under 50 crowd really won the election for Biden. And if the news coverage, you can make an argument, if the news coverage was just a little bit more even, Trump could have won. And now, but the beliefs that the origins of the COVID-19 virus differs within party by media diet. So those were the right lists developed intentionally, made accidentally in a lab, came about naturally. Look at the Dems that lean with left-leaning audiences. 61% were more likely to believe that COVID came of natural causes. That would be misinformation now in 2022. But in 2020, that was the popular opinion. And you couldn't disagree with that. If you disagree with that, you got banned off of Twitter. You got banned off of social media. And it's the same thing with the Biden laptops. Like, conservatives have been pointing out this stuff for years and years that we're being censored here. Our opinions doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, you need the other side to keep you honest. If that, then you just be just dogmatic regime. Like, hey, like, you can't question us. And that's what the left wants. They don't want any debates. They just want to tell you what to do or what you should do. Oh, I want you to get electric cars. Climate change. How we know climate change is not the same thing? You're wrong about COVID. Look, if I only digested right-wing ideas and sources and media, I'll have a better understanding of what's going on relative to a lefty. But I'd say all this to go back to a tweet I saw from Megan Fox. She's a journalist that I follow, I believe. And she talked about, there's a story that was going on about a 10-year-old pregnant girl who went to Ohio to Indiana, I believe, for an abortion. And she said there were a lot of red flags that she wants to go into detail. And I'm going to kind of skim through this real quick. But knowing everything that I laid out in the beginning of the video, let's take into consideration how fast that lefties fall onto the narrative. Red flag number 1, a pregnant 10-year-old is evidence of a hideous crime against a child. But in every article, there's so many, there's no mention of the criminal investigation, no police involvement, not even a town where this allegedly happened or occurred. Number 2, an unnamed alleged child abuse doctor called Dr. Caitlin Bernard, an abortionist in Indiana, to ask for help, but any doctor who knows of the abuse would be required by law to call law enforcement. There should be a criminal investigation going on involving Ohio's department, like DFS, and police. I don't know what DFS is, but I'm gonna start right here. Imagine that a 10-year-old came to you and said, "Hey, I'm pregnant. I need to get an abortion," and there's no criminal investigation. There's no like empirical evidence. Like, there's no proof of something. You can't find no trail of it finding, right? Which maybe should be the number one. The timing of this horrific story is too on the nose. Roe v. Wade was just overturned. The media is desperate for stories to push the pro-abortion narrative. Stoke fear, anger, and division. They love this, right? Open mind, right? If you're a Democrat, you believe that you are more open-minded than a Republican, right? Let's see here. If you are a Democrat, if you're on the other side, you can see where I'm going with this. The article, first published in Indy Star, a local Ohio paper site, but in record time was picked up by a huge international press on the 2nd. The Hill, Newsweek had it, and by the 3rd, The Guardian had it, and by the 4th, it was TMZ reaching all the kids. I heard about it from a teenager at a 4th party, and a red flag went off big time. If the kids have heard about it, it was placed where they will see it intentionally. Fake news is always sold to the youngins because they will swallow it the fastest through social media that this information went through and spread. Remember the whole thing, delete your period apps because the government could be tracking you through your cell phone data, right? But in the 2000 mules, when the the same concept that, hey, we can, through GPS tracking, we see all these phones suddenly stop by the post. Oh no, disregard that evidence. Oh, that's nothing. But when it's something they care about or something they perceive to be true, they just buy in hook, line, and sinker. No skepticism, nothing. Right? It was immediately used as a political weapon against Republican Governor Kristen Noem, and will be used against other pro-life politicians to make them answer this possibly hypothetical or made-up scenario to win political hit points. Dr. Bernard, the only source, is an abortionist and has been in the NYCT participating in anti-Trump hit pieces, and clearly is an activist. She has a stake in preserving abortion, is literally paying her bills. There's no way to verify Bernard's claims. She has doctors' patients' confidentiality. No one can FOIA her. The media won't ask any questions. Even if they did ask, she wouldn't answer. There's no proof that this 10-year-old even exists, and yet the media ran with it full tilt. Jennifer Rubin used this to batter conservatives, her former colleagues in the Washington Post. This further gives me serious doubts about the validity of the story. Rubin is a notorious tool of the left, using the story to ham pro-lifers. Why don't any of them care about the crimes committed against the child? Lawmakers in Ohio should demand an investigation into who raped this child. They're the only ones who can get information through the DFS and help the girl seek justice for the crime. If it happened, did it? That's a big question, and it's honestly, and a conservative would question, like, let's say you believe this story, and the conservative say, hey, there's no news reports, there's no, believe all women, right? No, there's no police report, and how you have to hold that person accountable, because then you're letting them free to do that to another person. Come on, it's blowing my mind. Like, no one can see that, hey, something's fishy here. Dr. Caitlin Bernard got a call from another doctor asking for help about a horribly abused child, and her first instinct was to call the media. That should make you all stop and think for a minute. What the hell is going on here? This reminds me of that. There's a TikTok video going around about a nurse, how she's filming herself and she's reacting to the death of one of her patients. This is the same thing here, right? I'm not saying it may not have happened, but these are some questions that need to be answered. Hey, why is the first thing a girl just told you, hey, she's been sexually abused and she's pregnant, and the first thing you do is, oh, I'm gonna use this as a crusade for my abortion stance. I'm going to use this as why we need abortion. Look at this little girl, and use her as a prop. The left has a bad habit of using kids to push their political agenda, and I find that very appalling, honestly. But let me know what you think, guys, on the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.